Is your Google Analytics installed correctly? Are you sure? In this video, we're gonna learn 5 important points to check in our Google Analytics account from Paul Koks. All and more coming up. Hey there, Measure Geeks, Julian here, back with another video for you. Today we have Paul Koks from onlinemetrics.com on the channel. He writes a really great blog on everything Google Analytics, which you should definitely check out. Now, I've talked to Paul for our upcoming event, MeasureSummit, where he conducted a session on his Google Analytics audit process. Today we're gonna hear a little part of this, but you can catch the whole session and many others at MeasureSummit 2020. Just head over to MeasureSummit.com and sign up to get your free ticket. All right, we still got lots to cover, so let's dive into the MeasureSummit session with Paul Koks. Okay, cool. Take us a little bit into you probably have a checklist and you have your steps. What are some common things that you see inside of the checklist that that people can check right now, maybe even in their analytics implementation if they have it implemented?
Yeah, let's start with one thing that is really important to be aware of, and that's personally identifiable information, PAI also known. You probably know it from like having pages where the email address is attached, sent to Google Analytics. That's an example of PAI. But you can also have it in site search or in your event labels, event action, even your custom dimensions. So one of the things I stumbled upon, it was for an American fashion company in the e-commerce niche, is that they had like the checkout step measured, so which is great from enhanced e-commerce. You can also fill in the checkout options with additional information, and they passed in the address in the checkout step 1. So the address information, they took like the postal code and also the city name. And actually in some countries you can lead this information into like one individual, so it's PAI. And they were getting such lots of data of PAI. So PAI, I definitely recommend to check the pages, events, custom dimensions, etc. You can search on Google like what's actually included in PAI, but that is a big one, and I see it often coming through, like at least in 50% of the cases. Well, another one is that I think it was roughly 3 years ago, I did an audit for a real estate company in the Netherlands, really a big one. I think nowadays it has like 40 or 50 million page views per month. And what I noticed, like the default channel grouping is, as you might know, people are listening, connected to campaign tracking. So if you set up like source mediums, it need to be in line with either the default channel grouping as defined by Google. So the channels, for example, paid search, organic search, affiliate connects to medium as affiliate as an example. And if you don't have the connection right, then the traffic ends up in the other bucket within the channels, within the default channel grouping. So I always strive for having like the other bucket lower than 2%. In this specific case, company now having 40 million page views or visits, they had like campaigns running at that time, but the campaigns were very large, but defined with source and mediums that were not picked up by the default channel grouping setup. So what happened is that they had like 30 to 40% of order at the time of monitoring when I checked their account. So, and they actually created dashboards out of it in Data Studio, for example, where they had like the other channel like being listed there. So this is a big one. Campaign tracking, source and mediums, you need to be aware like that they both impact if you analyze at that level, as well as connected to the default channel grouping, so the channels. Why do I mention the default channel grouping? Just one side note is that the default channel grouping is the only one that is connected to the reporting API at the moment. That's why I recommend to look into the default channel grouping when defining it, instead of the custom channel grouping if you want to build out like dashboards outside of GA via Google Sheets or a different tool, because you can use the API to automatically import the data in a different tool. Another one, if you look nowadays like SPAs, like single page applications, it's a little bit of an, let's say, current topic, because a lot of companies, especially e-commerce companies, I see this as well, like a lot when doing audits for e-commerce sites, is that the page, like not the entire page is being refreshed when someone navigates to another page. What usually happens is that page view tracking works like with a full reload of the page and that everything is refreshed. So then the next page view is measured. So if you look at your own website and you have like an SPA and you're running Universal Analytics, there might be a chance that you are actually not measuring the page views right. What can be an example is on an e-commerce site, you have, for example, a lot of different categories. And when someone navigates from one category to the other, then the second page view is not tracked anymore. So you will actually not measure page views right. This is like a basic measurement, but with SPAs, it can be much more challenging. I need to do like some technical things in GTM, probably based on the history listeners or something like that, and work with your developer to get that fixed. And one more thing, I worked for a lead gen site. Goals is another topic that is very important to check. A lot of companies either don't measure like the right goals, or they have like a lot of different goals, or they didn't have like goal values implemented on non-e-commerce sites. I once had a lead gen site with a lead gen form, and they had just one goal installed. It was quite a comprehensive site with a lot of content. The goal was like, of course, to submit the lead gen form. So I asked them, what is actually the value of this submitting of the lead generation form? Like, what is the value that your company gets economically out of it? And they were all like, so they didn't know. So they really didn't translate like this into like what it actually brought in for their business. So work with them to eventually define also a goal value in the front end of like having this lead gen form submitted based on averages that they get out of all the deals. And then it gave some more like economical exposure in the company as well in terms of what the website was delivering, instead of only having like a numbers, like we had 7 lead gen forms submitted last week. They mentioned like we probably had roughly $30,000 in revenue. This is not like completely accurate, of course, but it gives like in the longer term a better representation of what the channels are driving in terms of economical value. And then the last thing, like I mentioned already about event tracking. Event tracking is something you should definitely check. A few things that you should check is, for example, the event categories. You shouldn't have like 100 or 300 event categories, but try to categorize it like in a way that you can actually analyze and work with the data. So keep your event categories a little bit low. Event action, event label, what I can say about the event label is that it's often not filled, and you can use like, you can fill it with a lot of useful information, like in addition to the main event that is tracked, for example, e-commerce, or if you do like scroll tracking or specific clicks or anything, please fill in the event label field. And don't always fill it in with page, because page is something that is already like at your disposal with an event tracking as a normal dimension that you can use. So simply don't do always like the page part as the event label for all events that you are tracking. So these are just a few things, and we could go on like for an hour or so. But we have limited time, so yeah. So I hope this helps. Hi, I'm Paul Koks from OnlineMetrics.com. Hear me speak about Google Analytics audits and how they can improve your analytics data quality at MeasureSummit.com.
All right, so there you have it. This was a sneak peek from my session with Paul Koks at MeasureSummit 2020. We talked way more about this topic, like his actual process that he goes through, what he's doing after he detected the errors on the client's website, and the future of GA audits now that Google Analytics is out with App Plus Web. If you found this interesting and want to see the full session, then head over to MeasureSummit.com, get your free ticket, and then you can follow along with all the sessions that we had at MeasureSummit. 15 plus speakers are there, from Simo Ahava to Krista Seiden, many more Measure experts. Definitely check it out. I'm super excited about this, so I hope to see you there.